This episode of Engineering the Future is brought to you by The Personal, OSPE's home and auto insurance partner. These past few months have shown us just how important it is to have someone in your corner. When it comes to home and auto insurance, The Personal can be that someone. If you would like to learn more about this exclusive program, visit thepersonal.com/OSPE.
This podcast is brought to you by OSPE, the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, the advocacy body for professional engineers in the engineering community in Ontario.
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Engineering the Future, a podcast presented by the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers. I am your host, Jerome James. Today, I'm joined by Jasmine Shaw, an OSPE member and professional engineer who is committed to amplifying women in engineering and other STEM fields. She's also committed to promoting the value of engineers as entrepreneurs. Let's get right into it. For your first question of the night, Jasmine, can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? What drives your passion for using your engineering background to create change?
Well, thanks so much, Jerome, for having me, and to OSPE for hosting this podcast. So as Jerome mentioned, I am a professional engineer and I am a fledgling entrepreneur myself, and I'm a change maker. So my role in engineering is as a technical project manager. I actually just started a new job this week. And I'm really excited about this new chapter of my career. And as Jerome mentioned, I am committed to helping amplify and elevate women in STEM, which is really what my business is anchored around. It's anchored around helping women achieve their full career potential. So I spend a lot of time mentoring, coaching women, speaking at events, sharing my own STEM journey and experiences, and partnering with organizations like OSPE as an Engfluencer, and hosting my own interview series called Tech Talks, where I provide a platform for women to share their experiences in STEM. So in terms of creating change, so this is an area where I'm really interested in organizational change and change management. And I see engineering as structured problem solving for unstructured problems. And a couple of years into my career, I discovered that a lot of the methodologies and techniques that I was applying to solve technical problems could be used to solve organizational problems, business problems, or even social problems.
Right. Exactly.
So for example, whether that's the career development lifecycle or this leaky pipeline when it comes to women in engineering, all of these problems that don't necessarily have to do with building products, but where we can apply principles from engineering, whether that's analysis, like root cause analysis, or conducting trait studies to identify solution alternatives, and then verifying that the solutions are implemented properly. I think there's so much opportunity to apply an engineering perspective to these different problems, and that's what I'm really passionate about.
Excellent. So how long have you been doing this? How did it come about? What was the process? Did you have like a light bulb moment one day, a realization that you can make an impact and a difference?
So I think there's two kind of tracks here. So there's the business side and my kind of passion for supporting women in STEM. And that really stemmed, no pun intended, from my early university days when I became involved with different student initiatives and outreach initiatives at Carleton University. And I actually created a program that's still around today called the Student Ambassador Program for students to basically go to different high schools in the Ottawa region to promote careers in engineering. And I was really passionate about recruiting my women, colleagues and classmates to participate in that initiative. And from there, it kind of snowballed, and I became involved in several women in STEM initiatives, whether that was Go Eng Girl or Technovation, or speaking at Women in STEM events. That's kind of what triggered my passion for that. And I realized this year that I could, in fact, turn this into a business in order to create more impact. That's really what drives me, is creating impact. So that's why I turned it into a business. And then in terms of the, I think the change management side of things, so I actually participated in a design thinking workshop a couple of years ago at Carleton University. And it was a small session with Carleton University alumni, and they were using design thinking to kind of reimagine the alumni engagement process. So they wanted to really revamp how the university interacted and engaged with alumni to create a more exciting and engaging alumni experience. And they used design thinking to kind of map out like what would a really great alumni experience be. And this is my first really foray with design thinking, but I realized that there's so much overlap between the design thinking methodologies and engineering methodologies. So that was kind of my light bulb moment for how we could apply some of these principles to create positive change.
Very nice. You mentioned the tech talks that you create. I know that you're active on social media. How else are you reaching out to the masses to promote the value of what you're preaching?
Yeah, so Tech Talks is a live interview series that I host on Instagram, where I basically interview women who are in various stages of their careers across all STEM professions. And that really started because I just love talking to other people in STEM to hear their career journeys, especially folks who have maybe alternative career stories who didn't go the traditional route of graduating, getting an engineering job, and kind of progressing up the career ladder. I'm really interested in folks with all sorts of twisting and winding journeys. So that kind of started out of my own, I suppose, selfishness just to hear their stories. But it really resonated with a lot of the listeners. So that's why I keep doing that. And some of the other ways that I guess, reach out to folks. I'm really passionate about youth outreach as well. And I believe that interacting with youth, whether that's through hackathons or through like coding camps, there's so many initiatives and organizations out there where, STEM professionals can volunteer and give their time back to mentor, to guide, to support students through these events. And that's really valuable for me because these students, they're so eager and they're really impressionable. So you can create a really positive impact on them. And that's probably one of the most fulfilling things I do is just that one-on-one time with people where you can really see the impact. You can see how your words and your experiences are maybe changing the course of their life. And to me, that's a really cool way to have an impact.
Amazing. So you're impacting young people to get into STEM and STEM related fields. Tell me more about why it's important for engineers to be entrepreneurs and get into that entrepreneurial space.
For sure. So a couple of years ago, I decided to pursue my master's degree. And there was a couple of options in front of me. I could have done a master's of engineering in the field that I studied for my undergraduate degree. So I studied biomedical engineering. So I could have continued with a more technical degree, a master's degree in biomedical engineering. But I was kind of interested in just seeing what other types of programs were out there. So I came across the Technology Innovation Management program at Carleton University. And it's this really cool blend of technology and entrepreneurship. And it's almost like it's somewhat like an MBA, but as opposed to running big existing companies, it's much more focused on running tech startups.
Right.
And that was my first introduction with entrepreneurship and this idea that technical oriented people could start and run businesses. So through that program, it was a very interactive program. We did a lot of mock projects where we would come up with like a business idea, do like the prototyping and pitch it to investors. So that to me was just kind of, again, another light bulb moment where I realized the value that engineering perspectives brought to the table. A lot of folks in that program had more of a business background, or perhaps they had a tech background, but not necessarily like an engineering background with some of the core engineering skills. And just through working with different teams and different students from different backgrounds, I realized like the value of what the engineering perspective brought. So I think the key like value proposition for having more engineers as entrepreneurs is similar to what I said before about change management. It's really that engineering teaches people how to navigate complex, uncertain, multidimensional problems, and it gives you kind of a process to work through that and emerge with a cohesive solution. And for tech startups, a lot of the challenges faced in the early days of running a company, although they may not necessarily be technical problems, they will certainly be complex and multidimensional, whether that's around like stakeholder management, acquiring funding, developing a viable business model. The complexity is high, uncertainty is high, and I think that's really where engineers thrive. So I think that's why we need to have more engineers involved in entrepreneurship.
Okay, so you're saying the engineering mind lends itself well to breaking down and solving everyday business problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if we take an example of trying to like developing a minimum viable product, even though that is somewhat technical, like you really need to understand who are the users of this, like what are the critical features that you need in your MVP in order to acquire data so that you can improve it and iterate upon it quickly. And you need to really understand like where is the best place to focus your time, because in the early stages of tech startups, like resources and time are very limited. So just being able to kind of navigate the different dimensions of the problem and understand like the trade-offs between those different parameters. I think that's something that most engineers do on a regular basis, is kind of weighing trade-offs between different options.
Right.
So I think that in particular is really valuable.
We hope you're enjoying this episode so far. At OSPE, we're here for you, making sure government, media, and the public are listening to the voice of engineers. You can learn more at ospe.on.ca.
You often talk about your career, your engineering path, in the various avenues that you promote your content, in an effort to help individuals on their own career path, especially women. What are some of the key career takeaways that you like to share with individuals? What are some common career challenges that you've identified and solutions for those?
For sure. So I think that this information definitely needs to be democratized, because I've been fairly successful in my career to date. I think I've had several promotions. I'm pretty sought after team member. I've negotiated raises. And now I recently just pivoted to a different industry in a higher level position and with a higher paying salary. But a lot of this information, I kind of just picked it up along the way. I certainly had advice and guidance from other folks, but it wasn't, I would say, readily accessible. So to me, that's also a driving factor for me, is to make this these frameworks and approaches more accessible. So some of the common challenges that I've experienced in my career and that I know other folks have experienced, and solutions for them, proposed solutions for them. So the first one, this is one that I love. So it's about how to stand out in your career and how to really stand out in a way that you get access to opportunities and people, want to bring you on board for high visibility projects or initiatives. And what I've always done since I was, a junior engineer, is asking why, asking questions about everything and really challenging the status quo. And the quote that I came up with is, keep asking why until you either understand the problem or it needs to be solved. So I think if you keep persisting and asking why, you'll either get an answer that you're happy with, and then you understand like the bigger context, or you'll realize there is no good answer, and we're just doing this process, or we're doing something for the sake of doing it because no one has presented a better alternative. And that's where you can come in and propose, an improvement to a process or to a design. And that's a way that has always kind of worked for me to stand out, because people will notice someone who's always asking questions, who is always kind of challenging the status quo, and
exactly,
pushing the boundary to make the company and the product better. So that's one. And then I would say another challenge in terms of getting promoted or going after a raise, or maybe perhaps trying to move into a position with more responsibility, basically any kind of level up in your career. And the proposed solution for this is really knowing your value and knowing how to communicate it. So this means understanding what is your unique value proposition. So almost seeing it kind of like a business would, right? Like, what are the key skills, experiences that you have that set you apart from your peers, that solve pain points within the company? So if you can explain to the company, you know, your boss or whoever's in charge of your promotion, that they need to promote you because you bring so much to the company. If you can find a way to articulate that and distill it into a very succinct and catchy, almost elevator pitch, and that's definitely something that you can use kind of throughout your entire career, so you can rely on that elevator pitch. And then the last one that I think a lot of STEM professionals face is, especially during COVID, is burnout or just career job stress.
Oh yeah, I know that one for sure.
Yeah, a lot of us do. And what I have done for this and what I always tell people is to know your capacity. So I'm not sure if you've ever done like agile sprint planning, where you estimate how much work is in the sprint, and then you say, okay, well, this is our team's capacity. So yes, we'll be able to deliver all of these stories. So I take a similar approach to my life and my career is, okay, so I have all of these things going on. This is approximately how much effort they're going to take, but I only have this much time because, well, 40 hours of my week is spent towards my job. And then, I need at least X number of hours a day for like de-stressing. So if you're able to kind of develop a picture of like your capacity, like how many hours a week can you truly put towards volunteering or giving back or a side project, and have like that number, then it makes it a little bit easier to say no to things that come up because you'll have a sense of whether you're already at your capacity. And that's just a great way to set boundaries.
Yeah,
and make sure that you don't kind of push yourself to burnout. So I think those would be my top 3 tips.
Excellent. Those very well thought out tips for the every engineer who is trying to navigate those career pitfalls. What would you say is the most encouraging thing that you're seeing in engineering today?
I think the most encouraging thing that I'm seeing that continues to motivate me on a daily basis is just greater visibility and diversity of the role models. So there's so many other young, passionate, diverse engineers or engineering graduates that are leveraging social media, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, or even TikTok, to share their career experiences, their stories, to act as a role model for future generations. And to me, that is just so encouraging because that's not something I really had when I was going through university, albeit I wasn't very active on social media back then and it wasn't as popular. But nonetheless, I think this explosion of social media as a way to kind of change our perception of who is an engineer, like who's allowed to be an engineer, who is worthy of being an engineer. I think that's super valuable because there are young students, high school students, and university students that are on these platforms, and if they see more representation, then that kind of gives them the encouragement to, and the feeling that they belong in this field. So a couple of folks that I just wanted to call out that are doing really amazing work in this space. One of them is the Iron Ring Girls account on Instagram, run by Mina Desyanian. So she's also a P.Eng in Ontario, and she started the Iron Ring Girls platform really as a space for women engineers to come together. So that's a super awesome resource and kind of space for women engineers. Another one is Vanessa Raquel Raponi, who's she's also based in Ontario. She's an EIT. She was the founder of EngiQueers. She's a YouTube host, so she shares her kind of experiences on YouTube as well. And there's so many other folks that are just using different platforms to share their experiences to, again, kind of democratize engineering, which I think is super awesome.
Yeah. who was the biggest influence in your life that convinced you that this career path was for you?
I would say it has to be my mom. So my mom has been working in engineering for over 30 years now. She's definitely was the role model for me to pursue engineering. I didn't really like realize it when I was younger, like that she was an engineer, or like what she did was engineering. I didn't really have a good sense of what engineering was until like 12th grade. But once I realized that that's what my mom did, and that she had been working in this space for so long, and that she had faced some of these challenges in terms of working in like very male-dominated fields, especially in the 80s and 90s when it was even more prevalent, and that she still persisted, and that she's still inspiring and mentoring young engineers. I think that was definitely one of the biggest factors for me to pursue engineering.
Great. And finally, I have one last question for you. Can you tell us why you are a part of OSPE? What has promoted OSPE membership in your mind?
For sure. So I actually became an OSPE member for the first time after I graduated university back in 2016. And at that time, OSPE was running, it was like a pilot program for the women's mentorship program. I'm not sure if it's still running today, but back then they were doing like a dedicated women mentorship pilot. And that was really what attracted me to OSPE, was the opportunity to find a mentor that was, a seasoned professional in engineering, seeing as I had just graduated and I was kind of fumbling and didn't know where to go. And I actually met my very first professional mentor through that program. And we're still in touch to this day. I actually met up with her a couple of weeks ago when she was in Ottawa. So
that's great.
Yeah, that was a really valuable kind of experience for me. And then I did have a couple year hiatus from my membership as I was in school, like pursuing my master's and whatnot. But I recently rejoined, and for me, I'm at a point now in my career where advocacy is really important for me. So I have a lot of experience now. I have, a platform where I'm able to share my voice and where I'm able to also connect with other folks who are in engineering, and they can share their kind of challenges and pain points with me. And I feel that it's kind of my obligation to relay those common pain points back to OSPE, an organization that has the power and the motivation to make positive change. So that's really what's motivated me to get involved again, is advocacy. So whether that's advocating for diversity and inclusion as a regulatory imperative for engineers, advocating for just increased representation of women engineers, queer engineers, BIPOC engineers, advocating for increased representation of engineers in politics. There's just so many, I think, areas where we can all use our voices to advocate and enact positive change. So that's what I'm really excited to get more involved with OSPE in the coming years.
Amazing. And that wraps up the questions for tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like I've learned so much about engineering and entrepreneurship for people that may have questions in their career, and thank you for doing what you're doing and making people feel at home within the profession. I think that's very important, and I feel that we need more people doing this type of work to make engineering more inclusive for everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. And folks are more than welcome to reach out to me on social media if they want to chat about any of the things that we touched on today. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with them.
Great. You've been listening to Jasmine Shaw, a professional engineer, OSPE member, and entrepreneur who helps women in STEM achieve their full potential through community building and storytelling. I'm your host, Jerome James. You've been listening to Engineering the Future. Thank you for listening.
From all of us at OSPE, the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, thanks for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.